All right, the next type of graph we have is what we call a histogram. Okay, histograms are great for showing intervals. And when I say intervals, I mean like time, I mean like age, okay, amounts, etc. So I just asked a question of how many hours do you spend on your phone? Okay. Now, what I don't want to see on this is I don't want to ask everyone in the class individually, and they say, and I have to put a dot on the chart for each person. Like, oh, Mr. Lang, I'm about 2 hours and 15 minutes. I don't want a whole bar for that one person. Oh, I'm a 2 hour and 30 minute person. Oh, I'm a 4 hour and 8 minute person. Like, I don't want a bar for each one of those. So instead, I do these intervals. I do these sections of time: 0 to 2 hours, 2 to 4 hours, 4 to 6 hours, so on and so forth, right? It's great because it's intervals. It's different than a bar graph in two main ways, and we're going to see that in a second. Okay, so let's go ahead and make a histogram. So we have this, right? So the question was, how many hours do you spend on your phone? And we're going to go ahead and draw this chart, draw this graph. And I made these separate categories. So unlike bar graph is categories. You're going to see words. Okay. A histogram, you're going to see numbers, interval numbers. So my intervals were 0 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 6, and 6 plus. And I'm going to count it by twos here. So 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. And this is hours down here, okay? It's always important to label kind of things on your graph so people can look at it and see more clearly. That's why a title is really important. If you don't put a title, then no one knows what you're talking about. It's just random numbers. If you don't put what the categories mean down below, then it's hard to interpret. Okay, so how many hours a day do you spend on your phone? So from 0 to 2, we had 9 people. So I'm going to draw a. Okay, I'm going to say, I'm going to go up here to 9. And I'm going to draw a nice big. All right, so from 0 to 2, we had 9 people who did that. Now, another big difference between a bar graph and a histogram is there's no spaces between the bars, okay, between the columns. So from 2 to 4, I had 8 people. So I'm going to draw this right here, which is 8. So there's 8 people. From 4 to 6, I had 6 people. And 6 plus, I had 4 people. All right. So we look at this histogram, we look at this graph, and we say, okay, what can we gain? What information can we gather from this graph? Right? What information can we gather? Okay, again, it's different than a bar graph because the bottom is not categories. I wasn't asking about favorite movie. When you say categories, right? When you said favorite movie, right, comedy, action, whatever, those are separate categories, right? This one we're talking about these intervals between 4 and 6 hours, between 2 and 4 hours. It could be ages, right? Like if I ask a question, you know, when did you first ride a bike, right? And I said, okay, was it between 0 and 5, 5 and 10, 10 and 15. Like that way we don't have to have an individual, like everyone has their own number, right? You fit into a little group, a little interval of time, a little interval of hours or months or something like that, right? So what are some facts that we can say from this, right? This is good. We compare different things with this graph. So what are the facts that we can gain from this here? Okay, I could say that most people are between 0 and 2 hours, right? Another really cool thing I can see from this, okay, is it trends down, right? Like the more hours, the less people do it, right? So so you can see that like okay, less people like have that much time in the day, right? Now if I did another one which was like 8+ hours, there'd probably be even fewer people because there's not just that many hours in the day, right? So for this one, I'll just kind of simply put like more hours, less people, right? So it's really cool. You can kind of see that trend. You can see some of that. Now, what if there was like a really big jump? Like one of them was like the 8+ was like way really high. Then I'd be like, oh, this is weird. Apparently, this class really likes looking at their phones, right? So you can make gather kind of data from this, right? And again, it's cool because we have these little intervals so that we don't have individual categories, right? So it's very similar to a bar graph in that way. Just the intervals are kind of like what the categories are. Um, but yeah, but the difference is again, you put the bars all together so they're touching. That way they're easier to compare to each other, right? And that way we're also looking at again these numbered intervals. Okay, so that's what a histogram is. A histogram is kind of like a bar graph. That's why I'm doing them together, but they are different in that they you put the bars together, and again, they're measuring the intervals, not the categories. Okay, so that's histograms. In a nutshell, there's a couple of Excel there for you to do, and that's it. That's as far as histograms.